Hi there. Tell me in the comments which country and city you're from. I sat in that cramped back office behind the parts warehouse, humidity clinging to my skin from the broken ventilation while Logan Pierce stood near the filing cabinet like he was about to deliver good news. His tie was loose and he wore that practice smile he always used when something unpleasant was coming. But this time the smile didn't reach his eyes. We're restructuring, he said, crossing his arms casually. Found someone fresh out of college, eager to prove themselves. Willing to take the position for half what we're paying you. Nothing personal, Brielle. Just economics. Just economics. I didn't move. My fingers gripped the armrest of the old plastic chair, but I kept my expression blank. He was already reaching for a folder on the desk like the conversation was finished. I'd given 9 years to that distribution center. When I arrived, it was absolute chaos. No tracking systems, no organization, everyone working in circles. I took the job because I had a 7-year-old daughter at home, no partner to help with bills, and rent that never stopped climbing. I'd built the entire inventory management system from the ground up. Created vendor relationships that actually worked. Streamlined receiving processes that cut our turnaround time by 3 full days. Logan always came running to me when fires needed putting out, and now I was being tossed aside like outdated equipment. If you're new here and enjoying these powerful stories, make sure to hit that subscribe button and stay tuned for more. Let me know in the comments what part of today's story touched you most. I'll need you to document everything for your replacement, he added like he was offering me a gift. Maybe stay through the end of the week. Show them how things operate around here. That grin like I should thank him for the privilege of training my own replacement. I stood up slowly. My legs felt stiff, but I refused to let him see any weakness. He kept talking like we were old friends. Said maybe I'd find something less stressful, fewer hours. While you're listening, share which city or country you're watching from. I didn't acknowledge him. Just walked out of that office with my jaw clenched and my mind racing. Just economics. That job paid for everything. My apartment, my daughter's meals, her school clothes and field trips. And now I was being discarded like I'd never mattered at all. Back at my workstation, a cramped corner between the loading dock supervisor's office and the break room, I sat down and stared at my computer screen. Then I opened a document and started typing. Not for Logan, not for whoever was replacing me. For myself. So I wouldn't forget how quickly they decided I was expendable. I kept typing. Contact information, vendor protocols, warranty procedures, the specific quirks with certain suppliers. Like how Derek at Industrial Supply never checked his email but always answered his cell phone on the 3rd ring. I noted which product lines had consistent quality issues and which manufacturers always shipped late. I even added instructions for the ancient label printer that jammed twice a day because nobody else ever bothered to learn the trick. Halfway through I stopped typing. This was pointless. None of it would translate properly on paper. You had to live through it. The constant phone calls, the urgent texts from warehouse staff, frustrated clients pacing near the front desk. Everyone demanding answers immediately. You couldn't just hand off 9 years of institutional knowledge. I opened my bottom desk drawer and began packing. There wasn't much inside. A photo of my daughter from 3rd grade, smiling with missing front teeth. A coffee mug she decorated for me on Mother's Day that said, "World's Best Mom," with glitter that still shed everywhere. A small electric heater I'd purchased myself after enduring too many freezing mornings in this drafty corner. A thick binder of reference sheets I'd created over the years. Product codes, supplier contacts, quality control checklists. Everything that kept operations running smoothly when the official systems failed. I slid everything into a canvas tote bag I kept under my desk. No ceremonial goodbye box, no farewell cake, just me quietly packing while phones rang in the background and nobody picked up. Across the room, one of the warehouse coordinators glanced over and quickly looked away like she hadn't seen anything. Behind her, workers kept moving through, heads down, saying nothing. I caught one of them watching me. Raymond, the senior forklift operator, standing near the dock entrance. Our eyes met briefly. Then he turned and walked back toward the loading area. I didn't blame any of them. They weren't responsible for this decision. I stood up, took one final look at my workstation and logged out of the computer. Logan was nowhere in sight. Probably hiding in his office, hoping I'd just leave without causing a scene. He knew better than to try some fake sympathetic speech. I might have said something I couldn't take back. I walked straight past the warehouse floor, past the quality control station, past the wall of corporate motivation posters with their meaningless slogans. My footsteps sounded louder than usual on the concrete floor. I didn't look back once. At the front entrance, I was supposed to attend a planning session with Veronica, our regional operations director. We'd worked together for years. I'd spent the entire previous week preparing materials for that quarterly logistics review. I didn't go. I saw her sedan in the parking lot, knew she was upstairs in the conference room. She probably assumed I was running late or dealing with an urgent delivery issue. I considered going up and explaining everything, just walking in and stating the facts plainly, but I couldn't. Not while my face felt hot and my throat was tight and my hands were still clenched like I was gripping something that had already slipped away. I got in my car, closed the door and sat motionless for a moment before starting the engine. Then I drove away. No farewell gathering, no acknowledgement, no handshake. Just silence. I arrived home, kicked off my work boots and set the tote bag on the kitchen counter. The apartment was quiet except for the refrigerator's low hum. I hadn't even sat down when my phone started ringing. Veronica. I stared at her name on the screen for a few seconds, then answered. "Where are you?" she said immediately, her tone sharp with irritation. "You completely missed the quarterly logistics review." I leaned against the kitchen counter. "I'm not there because I no longer work there." Silence. "What are you talking about?" she asked. Her voice lost the irritation and took on something harder to read. "Logan fired me today," I said. "Told me they found someone younger who'd work for half my salary. Already hired them." That statement landed heavily. She didn't respond for several long seconds. I could hear papers rustling on her end like she was searching for something. When she spoke again, her tone was completely flat. "Did he provide you with termination paperwork?" "No." "Were there performance issues documented?" "No." "Did Human Resources contact you at any point?" "No." Another pause. This one stretched even longer. "Keep your phone available," she said. Then the line went dead. No goodbye, no reassurance. Just click. I stood there staring at my phone like it might offer some explanation if I looked long enough. My chest felt constricted, but I didn't sit down. Instead, I started unpacking the tote bag, setting the mug on the counter, propping my daughter's photo against the wall, plugging in the small heater even though the apartment was warm, just to hear something familiar. An hour passed. Then my phone rang again. Corporate Human Resources. The woman on the line sounded artificially cheerful, like she was reading from a script someone else had written. "Can you walk me through who communicated that your employment was being terminated?" she asked. "Logan Pierce," I said. "And was documentation provided at that time?" "No." "Were performance concerns discussed?" "No." "Was there any mention of a restructuring process or formal layoff procedure?" "No." She made a humming sound, typing rapidly. "And you were directed not to return to the facility?" "He told me to write transition documentation and leave by end of business." More typing, more pauses. "Thank you," she said finally. "Someone will be in touch shortly." That was everything. No apology, no explanation, just a vague promise floating in the air like it carried weight. I hung up and finally sat down. My hands were trembling slightly now. Not from fear. From anger. The slow-burning kind that doesn't explode, just smolders. I hadn't even poured myself water when my phone rang a third time. Logan. I almost sent it to voicemail. Almost ignored him completely. But I wanted to hear what he'd say when he was scrambling. "What's happening?" he said the instant I picked up. His voice was too friendly, like we were casual acquaintances. "There's been some kind of misunderstanding." I said nothing. "HR reached out," he continued. "Apparently there was confusion about proper authorization channels. We need you to come back. Like immediately." I laughed once. It escaped before I could stop it. "You fired me," I said. "You told me it was about budget constraints. You said you'd already hired my replacement." "Well, yes, but..." He cleared his throat nervously. "Things move quickly around here. You know how corporate operates. So now you want me back," I said flatly. "Urgently," he said quickly. "We really need you here." I pictured him standing in that same back office, smile completely gone, trying to hold together something he'd never actually understood. "I'll think about it," I said. There was a beat of genuine silence. He clearly hadn't expected that response. "Okay," he said softer now. "But please contact me soon." I ended the call and placed my phone face down on the table. Then I walked into my daughter's bedroom to start making dinner like nothing unusual had happened. I was washing dishes when my phone lit up again. Same number from earlier. Veronica. I dried my hands and answered. Don't hang up, she said immediately. You need to hear what I'm about to tell you. I waited. I didn't fire Logan, she said. I promoted him. That caught me completely off guard. You what? Corporate approved his budget reduction proposals, she said. Liked his numbers enough to make him regional operations director. He's overseeing all 4 facilities now. My mouth opened but no words came out. She wasn't finished. No assistant managers, no operations coordinators, just him. Full authority over everything. I let out a slow breath. You're serious? He convinced everyone the systems would maintain themselves, she said. So I told him fine. Prove it. Then she disconnected. The next morning the calls started. First it was Casey from the front desk. Said a client had been waiting 3 hours for a delivery confirmation that nobody could locate. Then Raymond called, said the warehouse team couldn't find the replacement parts for an urgent order, and the inventory database hadn't been updated since Tuesday. A supplier sent a text asking if our payment portal was malfunctioning because their invoices were showing as overdue. By noon I had 8 missed calls. I answered some of them. Couldn't help myself. Walked Casey through where to find the backup delivery logs. Explained to Raymond how to search the inventory system by manufacturer code instead of product name. Sent a screenshot of the payment portal login to the supplier so they could access their account. But I didn't take all the calls. I wasn't being paid. This wasn't my responsibility anymore. That evening Logan left a voicemail. Hey, it's me. Just checking in. Things are a bit challenging right now, but I'm handling it. Call me when you get a chance. The next day was worse. 4 texts arrived. One said appointment schedules were overlapping and nobody had processed the quality control reports in over a week. Another said they'd ordered materials from the wrong vendor and now the client was demanding a full refund. The third simply said, you left and everything fell apart. Then another voicemail from Logan. I know we had a communication breakdown, he said. But I could really use your assistance. Just temporarily, a few days maybe. We can discuss terms. I didn't return his call. On Friday he left another message. I'm doing my best, okay? But systems are breaking down. Please come back. We need you here. His voice cracked slightly near the end. Not completely desperate yet, but getting closer. I saved the voicemail and went back to folding laundry. I knew exactly what was happening. The infrastructure I'd built still existed, but nobody understood how to operate it. He'd assumed he could replace 9 years of experience with a spreadsheet and an eager college graduate. Let him figure it out. I was sitting in the parking lot at my daughter's school, waiting for dismissal when my phone rang again. Logan. I almost ignored it like I had the previous 5 times, but something made me curious enough to answer. His voice sounded strained, exhausted. Hey, listen. We need to have a conversation. I didn't respond. The new hire quit, he said. Didn't even complete their first week. Said the position was nothing like what they'd been told during interviews. I raised my eyebrows, staying silent. I'm willing to make adjustments, he continued rapidly. Better compensation, better schedule, no weekend requirements. I'll authorize whatever you need. I almost laughed at the audacity. You really think this is about scheduling? I asked. No, he said quickly. I understand it's more complex than that. I know I made mistakes. I was trying to satisfy corporate budget requirements and look, I thought you'd understand. You always understood the business side of operations. That's exactly the problem, I said. He went quiet. You fired me like I was a line item on a budget report, I said. Like I didn't matter at all. No warning, no discussion, just nothing personal. He sighed heavily. It was just business. I sat there watching children stream out of the building with their backpacks bouncing. To you it was business, I said. To me it was rent payments, groceries, health insurance for my daughter. That job held my entire life together, and you discarded it like it meant nothing. I didn't intend for it to feel that way. But you did it anyway. And now everything's collapsing and you want me to fix it again like I always have. He was quiet for a long time. I didn't fill the silence. Then he said quietly, just consider it, please. No, I said. I'm done considering you. And I disconnected. Didn't slam the phone. Didn't raise my voice. Just ended it. That was the last time I ever answered his calls. After I hung up on Logan, I opened my laptop and started submitting applications. Not just distribution centers. I was finished with loading docks and inventory chaos. I looked at supply chain management, logistics coordination, procurement positions, anything where experience mattered more than being the cheapest option. It didn't take long to notice the same pattern everywhere. Job listings filled with companies desperate for organized professionals who could build efficient systems. I thought, yeah, I've been doing that while half asleep. One afternoon, I received a call from a supply chain firm in Camden. Medium-sized operation woman named Rochelle ran it. She sounded sharp, direct, and genuinely professional instead of fake friendly like half the people I'd worked with before. She asked if I could come in for an interview the following day. I said yes before she finished the sentence. The office was practical. No decorative plants, no expensive furniture, just workstations, shipping containers, and people who looked like they actually worked instead of attending endless meetings. Rochelle met me at the entrance herself. Mid-40s, blazer over a simple shirt, hair pulled back practically, no excessive jewelry. I appreciated that immediately. We sat in a small conference room with a whiteboard and a coffee maker that made grinding noises every few minutes. So, she said, reviewing my resume. Distribution center operations, correct? Yes, 9 years. When I started, they were drowning. No systems, no organization, everything reactive instead of proactive. I built comprehensive receiving processes, restructured inventory management, reduced delivery turnaround time by 3 full days. She nodded slowly. You created the infrastructure from scratch. I didn't just make it function. I made it sustainable. She looked up at me. And then they terminated you. Budget cuts. Hired someone right out of college for half my compensation. It collapsed immediately. Her mouth twitched slightly, almost smiling. Sounds familiar. I appreciated that she didn't ask for references. Didn't ask me to perform like some polished sales pitch. He just listened carefully. 20 minutes into our conversation, she said, "We're launching a new distribution branch. It's currently chaotic. Inventory is disorganized, nobody can locate anything efficiently, and shipments go out late constantly." I leaned forward slightly. I've dealt with worse. She chuckled. I believe you. Then she said something I hadn't heard in years. I want you to manage it. Build the entire operation however you see fit. Tell me what tools you need, what systems you want to implement. We'll support you. I didn't even hesitate. I'm in. The offer came with higher compensation than I'd ever earned. No weekend requirements, flexible schedule, benefits starting immediately. But that wasn't what affected me most. From day one, they actually listened. People asked questions instead of pretending they already knew everything. I wasn't the emergency responder anymore. I was part of the foundation. When problems arose, they brought them to me with potential solutions, not excuses. I wasn't invisible. I wasn't backup. I was trusted. And for the first time in years, I didn't feel like I was just surviving each day. I felt like I was building something that genuinely mattered. Week 3 at the new position, my phone started receiving messages again, but this time not with drama. It was vendors, people I'd worked with for years. Randy from packaging supplies, Christina from the industrial equipment company, even the courier who ran emergency overnight deliveries for urgent orders. They all said variations of the same thing. You working somewhere else now? You guys need suppliers? Please tell me you're not dealing with Logan anymore. I cleared it with Rochelle first. Do what makes sense, she said. Just don't bring in unreliable partners. I don't care about their history as long as they deliver quality. So I contacted them one by one. Some brought existing contracts, others started with small trial orders. Regular shipments, occasional deliveries. Every single one mentioned that things at the distribution center were falling apart. Orders arriving late, specifications wrong, nobody returning communications, invoices going unpaid, Christina told me. The place is completely upside down. Nobody seems to know who's actually in charge. I knew exactly who was in charge. That was precisely the problem. Rochelle didn't ask for explanations. She just observed the orders coming in consistently, accurately, without errors. She appreciated that. Said I moved faster than her entire procurement team combined. Then one afternoon, I saw a name appear that I hadn't heard from in a while. Veronica. I answered immediately. She didn't waste time on pleasantries. I heard approximately half our vendor relationships are now working with you. I waited, prepared to defend myself. But then she said, I'm not upset. Just impressed. I blinked. Really? You're not stealing suppliers, she said. You're maintaining professional relationships. They followed you because they trust you. I didn't say anything. They don't trust Logan, she added. I could have said plenty. I didn't. Just let that statement sit there. Well, she said finally. Hope your new company understands what they have. They do, I said and disconnected. After that, the calls slowed down considerably. Not because people weren't reaching out. They were already working with us. I didn't have to recruit anyone. The distribution center lost those accounts entirely on their own. They kept struggling along. Last I heard, constant turnover, new hires leaving within weeks, complaints accumulating, nobody staying longer than a few months. Occasionally, someone would send me a screenshot of a negative review or an angry comment from a dissatisfied client. I didn't gloat. Didn't need to. The work I used to do was visible now through its absence. And honestly, that was sufficient. 6 months into the position, Rochelle called me into her office. She didn't waste time with small talk. You've stabilized the entire branch, she said. Revenue is up, errors are down significantly. Everyone trusts your systems. I nodded. I wasn't comfortable with excessive compliments, but I heard her. She leaned forward. We're expanding. The second location has been operating without proper structure. I want you to oversee inventory operations for both facilities. I didn't hesitate. Absolutely. The new branch was rougher. Larger space but no rhythm or efficiency. Orders stacked up randomly. Returns mislabeled constantly. Stock sitting on pallets because nobody knew proper storage locations. I rolled up my sleeves and started fixing it the same way I always had. One systematic piece at a time. Rochelle authorized me to hire additional help. So I posted the job listing myself. Didn't want someone overqualified trying to prove themselves, just someone genuinely willing to learn. That's how I found Ethan. He was 21, recently finished with technical training, no real experience, but he asked genuine questions. Didn't pretend to understand everything. Showed up early and never checked his phone during training sessions. Ever worked inventory management before? I asked him on his first day. No, he said, but I learn quickly and I don't mind hard work. That was all I needed to hear. I started him on fundamental tasks. Processing orders, restocking, checking for damaged goods. But I didn't stop there. I showed him how to track shrinkage, how to establish inventory minimums, how to handle supplier backorders without waiting for management approval. You don't just react to problems, I told him. You build systems that prevent them. He absorbed everything, took detailed notes, asked why processes existed, not just how to execute them. Every time I showed him a system I'd created, he'd study it carefully, then suggest one small modification to improve efficiency. Half the time he was absolutely right. I remembered what it felt like being that new, being handed chaos and told to figure everything out without proper guidance. I never wanted anyone working under me to experience that. So I taught him what nobody had taught me. Not just how to survive the day but how to control the processes. How to make them smarter, faster, more efficient. I gave him the binder of handwritten reference sheets I'd carried for almost a decade. You'll need to create your own eventually, I said, but these will help you start. He looked at me like I'd handed him something precious. That felt better than anything I'd accomplished at the distribution center. There I'd been a temporary fix covering permanent problems. Here I was building something lasting. And for the first time in years, I wasn't just building systems. I was developing someone. I was walking out of the warehouse office, inventory report in hand, when my phone buzzed. Unknown number. I almost ignored it, but something made me answer. Hey, the voice said, it's Jeremy from Automotive Parts. Used to work at your old place. That took me a moment. Then I remembered him. Younger guy, always wore band t-shirts but worked harder than most people there. Oh hey, I said. What's going on? I'm quitting, he said. Submitted my notice this morning. I waited for the usual complaints. Thought maybe he just needed someone to listen. But then he said, I just wanted to say thank you. That surprised me. For what? You remember that bulk order mix-up? The one I completely screwed up. I nodded even though he couldn't see me. Yeah, you ordered 30 units of the wrong specification. Logan was ready to fire me on the spot, he said. And you stepped in. Told him it was your error. Said you'd given me incorrect information. I remembered that clearly. Logan had backed off immediately. I figured I owed you one, he said. But what I really want to say is, after you left, everything got terrible. Like significantly worse. And people noticed. I leaned against the wall. You were the person who made that place function, he said. Not just the systems. The people. You treated everyone like they had value. After they fired you, it felt like we were all just replaceable numbers. Like none of us mattered. His voice wavered slightly. I stayed longer than I should have. Thought maybe things would improve. They didn't. I'm sorry, I said. And I genuinely meant it. Don't be, he said. You getting fired made several of us finally step back and ask ourselves, why are we still here? A bunch of people left that same month. More after that. I think people just needed to see it clearly. I let that information settle. I'm going to an automotive distributor in Newark, he added. Better compensation, reasonable hours. Manager actually shows up and does their job. That's good, Jeremy. You deserve that. So do you, he said. I heard you're doing something new now. Whatever it is, I hope they recognize what they have. Yeah, I said. They do. He paused, then quieter. Just wanted you to know you made a real difference. We hung up and I stood there for a moment, phone still in my hand, inventory report pressed against my side. I'd never considered it from that perspective. How my departure affected everyone else. I'd been so focused on the insult, on Logan's dismissive attitude, on rebuilding my career, that I never stopped to think about what it meant to the people still trapped inside that dysfunction. Maybe that's what real leadership actually was. Not a title, not a nameplate, not a bigger office. Just showing up consistently, being reliable, supporting your people even when it cost you something. Quietly establishing a standard that others could depend on. I didn't make any speeches when I left. I didn't tell anyone to follow me. But maybe I didn't have to. A few weeks after Jeremy called, I was kneeling by a shipping pallet preparing a reorder document when my phone buzzed. Rochelle. I answered on the first ring. We're opening a third branch, she said without preamble. Larger facility, more complex operations. I want you running logistics across all 3 locations. There wasn't a pause, not even a flicker of uncertainty in me. Absolutely, I said without hesitation. She outlined the basic timeline. Construction phase, staffing requirements, initial vendor negotiations. But I barely registered the details. My brain was already moving, already mapping out what needed to happen first, second, third. I'd done this kind of work in fragments before, but now it was mine to own completely. And this time nobody was pretending I was just temporary support. That evening I told my daughter over dinner. She dropped her fork and said, "So you're like the boss of all the bosses now?" I laughed. Something like that. She looked at me for several seconds, then said, "You're different now. Happier." That observation hit me harder than I expected. She wasn't wrong. A year earlier, I'd walked out of a distribution center with my job stripped away without warning. Angry, exhausted, burned out from having to prove myself constantly just to be overlooked when it actually mattered. Now I was building teams, implementing systems, developing people. It wasn't just about hours or compensation anymore. It was about knowing I had value. About waking up without dreading the day ahead. About working with people who genuinely wanted success and gave you recognition when it happened. Getting fired had been the worst professional day of my life. But it had pushed me out of something that was never going to improve and into something that finally did. The third branch opened 4 months later. Largest facility we had, serving clients across 3 states. I hired 12 people that first month. Trained them myself, built the systems from absolute zero, established relationships with new vendors while maintaining the reliable ones. Ethan transferred to the new location as Assistant Operations Manager. 22 years old and already running daily logistics better than managers I'd seen with decades of experience. "You taught me everything," he said when I told him about the promotion. "I taught you the basics," I corrected. "You figured out how to make them better." He smiled at that. 6 months after the third branch opened, I received an email I wasn't expecting. From Veronica. Subject line, "Coffee." I stared at it for a moment before opening. "Brielle, hope you're doing well. I know it's been a while. I'm in your area next week for meetings. Would you have time for coffee? My treat. No agenda, just want to catch up. Veronica. I thought about ignoring it. Thought about declining politely. But curiosity won. I replied, Thursday afternoon works. Coffee shop on Market Street, 3 p.m. Thursday came. I arrived exactly on time. She was already there, sitting at a corner table with 2 cups of coffee waiting. She stood when she saw me, extended her hand. Professional, not overly friendly. Thanks for meeting me, she said. I sat down across from her. What's this about? She smiled slightly. Direct as always. I appreciate that. She took a sip of coffee, then set it down carefully. Logan's gone, she said. I raised my eyebrows but said nothing. Corporate removed him 3 months ago, she continued. All 4 facilities were underperforming significantly. Vendor relationships destroyed, employee turnover at unprecedented levels, client complaints through the roof. They couldn't justify keeping him. I see, I said neutrally. After he left, they brought in consultants to assess what went wrong, she said. Want to know what they found? I waited. They found that one person had built every functional system across all 4 locations. Every process that actually worked, every vendor relationship that remained stable, every procedure that kept operations running efficiently. All of it traced back to you. She leaned forward slightly. The consultants recommended they try to bring you back. Offered to triple your previous salary, full benefits package, executive title, whatever it took. I took a sip of my coffee, letting her continue. I told them no, she said. That surprised me. Why? Because you're obviously thriving where you are, she said. Because you deserve to work somewhere that valued you from the beginning, not somewhere that only figured out your worth after destroying what you built. She paused. And because I owed you an apology. I hadn't expected that. I promoted Logan, she said quietly. I believed his budget projections, believed he understood operations well enough to scale them. I should have known better. I should have fought harder to keep you when he made that decision. You didn't know, I said. I should have, she replied. That's my job. To know who actually makes things work versus who just looks good in presentations. We sat in silence for a moment. I'm not here to offer you anything, she said. I'm just here to say I'm sorry for what happened, and I'm genuinely glad you landed somewhere better. I nodded slowly. I appreciate that. We talked for another 20 minutes. Not about work, just general conversation. She asked about my daughter, I asked about her family. It was strange talking to her like actual people instead of just corporate roles. As we stood to leave, she said, for what it's worth, Logan called me 6 times after corporate let him go. Wanted a reference. I declined. I smiled at that. Good. She extended her hand again. Take care of yourself, Brielle. You too. I walked back to my car feeling lighter somehow. Not because of the apology, though that meant something. But because I realized I didn't need it anymore. I'd already moved past what happened. I'd already built something better. 1 year after leaving the distribution center, Rochelle called an all-staff meeting across all 3 branches. Video conference, everyone connected simultaneously. She appeared on screen, professional as always, but smiling genuinely. I want to announce a new position, she said. Vice President of Operations. This person will oversee all logistics, inventory management, and vendor relationships across our entire company. I already knew where this was going. Brielle Maddox has transformed how this company operates, she continued. She's built systems that actually function, developed teams that work efficiently, and established vendor relationships that others spend years trying to create. She's exactly what leadership should look like. I felt my face getting warm. Brielle, congratulations. The position is yours if you want it. On screen I could see people clapping. Ethan was grinning like he'd won something himself. I want it, I said clearly. That evening I picked up my daughter from after-school care. She climbed into the car with her usual dramatic sigh about homework. How was your day? She asked, throwing her backpack in the back seat. Got promoted, I said casually. She whipped her head around. Again. I laughed. Yes, again. To what? Vice President. She stared at me for a solid 5 seconds. Then she started laughing. Mom, you went from getting fired to becoming a vice president in 1 year? Apparently. She shook her head, still smiling. That's actually insane. Language, I said automatically, but I was smiling too. As I drove home, I thought about everything that had happened. A year ago, I'd sat in that cramped back office listening to Logan tell me I was replaceable. That my 9 years of work could be handed off to someone half my age for half my salary. He'd been wrong about everything. I wasn't replaceable. The work I did mattered. The relationships I built had value. The systems I created were the difference between success and failure. And now I was leading an entire company's operations, making more money than I'd ever imagined, working with people who actually respected what I brought to the table. Getting fired had felt like the end of everything.